Hey guys, it's Heather with Life of Mommy. Thanks for joining me today. I've gotten a few requests to share my labor and delivery stories, so I thought I would go ahead and share both of them here in this one video. That way you can hear them both at the same time. It's just a very casual video of me just sitting down and chatting with you and sharing my personal experiences with you guys. So I hope you enjoy this video. And I would just love to hear from you and about your labor and delivery experiences. So be sure to leave a comment below. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how your labor and delivery went, or if you are an expecting mom, tell me what your delivery plan may be, and that way I can get to know you a little more. Alright, so my first labor and delivery experience with my firstborn son was really stressful, and I just kind of felt like I didn't know if I want to go through all that again, or the possibility of going through that again. So what do I mean? Well, let's go ahead and start off at about 38 weeks. I was at my doctor appointment, and my OBGYN pretty much told me that my blood pressure was getting high and we had to monitor it because it could play as a risk in the whole delivery process. So that kind of worried me a little bit, but she was like, you know, don't worry. Of course, I'm already worrying. I'm already Googling stuff, but my feet were like super blown up. My cheeks were filling. I had a lot of water retention in my hands and my legs, so I was pretty much done for it. And what I happened to do is I decided to take the last week off of work, so I went ahead and put in my time request for my maternity leave at 39 weeks so that I could have the last week to just kind of relax and kick back and, you know, soak up whatever last minutes of sleeping and relaxation that I can get in. I go home, I go to sleep that night, I wake up the next morning, I am ready to just sit down and relax and do nothing. So I go ahead and I get a snack and I sit down on the couch to watch a TV show. And I kid you not, like 5 minutes later, I felt the urge to go to the bathroom. And as I'm walking to the bathroom, and as soon as I get there, my water just broke, like water everywhere. And I was like, oh my god, what just happened? And my husband, who was working from home at the time, I was like, babe, I called out to him and I said, I think my water just broke. And he's like, what do you mean you think? Like, did your water break or did it not break? So I was like, yeah, I mean, there's fluid coming out. So I called the doctor's office and I'm like, hi, I think my water just broke. Super nervous, freaking out. And the nurse was like, well, what do you mean? Like, and the lady on the phone was like, so either your water broke or it didn't. Did it break? I'm like, well, yeah, there's fluid coming out. It's clear. So she was like, all right, get in the car, go to the hospital. So I hung up and I'm like, okay, baby, this is it. Like, oh my God, we're going to have a baby. And we were super excited. Everything was packed and everything was ready because I'm such a planner. So I made sure I had everything done a few weeks prior. So we took a few towels to the car for me to sit on because I promise you, like, my water just kept breaking sporadically. Like, a bunch of water would come and then it would pause, and then more water would come and take a little pause. So throughout the ride to the hospital, like, my water just kept breaking. And so we get there and they take you to like this little room. Well, it's like a big room with like little sections of curtains for those of you who don't know. And we're in there and pretty much they hook you up onto a monitor and they have to do like a strip test to see if you're actually, like, your water truly broke and if you're in labor. So when they go to do the strip test to me, like, instantly it turned blue, and that means that you're in labor. So they were like, okay, don't worry, you're staying, you're gonna be admitted into a room, just give us a few moments to set that up. So at this point, I mean, I'm experiencing some contractions, but I am like not in pain yet. I'm so in the hype of that I'm about to meet my child soon, and everything is really exciting and we're all happy. And I wasn't really focused so much on the contractions per se, and because my water had broke, I wasn't worried about counting or doing any of that. And I hadn't experienced any Braxton Hicks contractions, so I wasn't really paying attention to that part. So we get up to the room and my husband and I would just start chatting, and we turn on the TV or we watch some shows. He's already snacking away. We let our family know that we're there. So let's fast forward about 6 hours later. I got to the hospital around 12:30, and now it was about 6:30 at night. and I was feeling those contractions. I was already like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, I can't handle this pain. Mind you, I went into this thinking, okay, I only want to get the epidural if like I absolutely have to. I kind of wanted to try to have a natural birth without epidural. At this point, it had already almost been 7 hours and I was just over it. I'm not good with pain at all. I'm such a wuss when it comes to pain. So I called the nurse in and I told her that I wanted the epidural. Well, that's like another 45-minute wait. So for those of you who are planning to get the epidural, don't wait till last minute to ask for it, because it does take a while for them to come and give it to you. So finally the epidural comes. They're like, oh, what's your pain from 1 to 10? I, of course, was like, oh, it's a 12. So the guy gives me the epidural. I would say, I don't know, 30-40 minutes pass by, and now I'm like, no more pain, everything's great. I can just sit back and wait for the baby to come, no problem. Well, my blood pressure, it was going out of control again. I started to get a fever, and my head was hurting. It was just like terrible. Let's fast forward a little bit. We're at 10 p.m. now. By the way, I came into the hospital 0 centimeters dilated, and at 10 p.m. I'm still 0 centimeters dilated. Like, nothing was moving along, and they told me that they were gonna have to give me Pitocin to kind of start the labor process and get this baby moving. All right, so fast forward, it's almost midnight now. They're giving me the Pitocin, still 0 centimeters dilated, and again, my blood pressure is high. My fever is about 102, and I'm just like over this. Like, I want it to be done with already. It's almost 12 hours in labor, and I was ready to meet my child. So the nurses come back in with the doctor and they tell me that it's time to push. We're talking about 12:15 a.m. now. And I was just like, okay, yes, let's get this baby out. Mind you, now I'm on a breathing mask. So it's high blood pressure, fever, and breathing mask, all at the same time as I have to push this baby out. I was just like, I can't believe like this is happening. Like, what am I supposed to do? Again, I'm a wuss with pain, so this was just like the worst for me. So when they tell me to push, I promise you, I felt nothing. And I've talked to people since then, and they say that when you get an epidural, you're supposed to at least feel some sort of pressure where you're pushing to know how to push the baby out. Well, I promise you, I felt absolutely nothing. So they would tell me, no, you're pushing your leg, you're pushing your foot, you're pushing your back. And I'm like, I can't feel where I'm pushing, you know? And I was getting so frustrated, guys. Like, it was just the most frustrating thing. And I look over to my husband and I'm almost crying at this point, because I'm like, babe, I can't do this. I can't push my kid out. Like, I can't feel anything. I freaking have a breathing mask on me. I was so over it. And, you know, he was trying to be so helpful, telling me that I can do this. Our son needs me right now. Like, push him out. He's gonna be okay. God is in control. Nothing's gonna go wrong. And I promise you, I was just like, oh my God. I was like, please, Lord, help me get this child out. Like, honestly, at this point, I just felt hopeless, because I seriously could not feel where I was pushing, and I wasn't pushing the baby out at all, and he had to be out. They decided to give me something that's supposed to reverse the epidural. I don't remember what it's called, but so they gave me that, and we kept trying to push, but no luck. And finally, at around 12:40, they told me, we're gonna try again, Heather, come on, you can do this. So I go to push, and I feel something. Finally, I feel a pressure of where I'm pushing, and I promise you, I gave it my all. At that moment, I just pushed like never before, and I finally got the baby out. In that one push, I was just like so thankful. I was like, thank you, Jesus. I finally got this baby out. And with that one push, he came out, and they gave me my child, and it was just the biggest relief I have experienced to this day. I kid you not. Like, he was out. I was no longer worried about if he was stuck, if he was breathing. And man, let me tell you, like, it was crazy. So to have this baby finally in my arms and just to meet him was the most amazing thing I've experienced. So that was pretty much it. They took the baby, they checked him, everything looked great, and I was in the hospital for about 2 days. Okay, so labor and delivery experience number 2. Completely different from my first labor story. At this time, I had already been staying at home for about a year with my oldest son. I was able to put my career aside and just kind of focus on my kids, so I was very happy to be doing that. At about 39 weeks, I said, I need to go get a pedicure. I need to be ready. This child can come any day. So I went that morning to go and get my nails done, and it was when I was getting my pedicure that I started to feel like something in my lower back, and I was like, I wonder if this is what a contraction feels like. Because if you remember from my first labor story, my water broke and I went to the hospital. So I really wasn't like aware of what the whole contractions thing was, and my water breaking was actually the alert that the baby was on its way. So this time around, my water hadn't broke yet, but I was feeling something like in my lower back, you know, and I was like, okay, maybe I should start timing this just to see. So I'm getting my nails done, I'm really relaxed, and it comes again a second time, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna document this, you know, in my notes. It had been 10 minutes since the last one, and I was like, oh, So I text my father-in-law, and cause he's a doctor from Cuba, and I was like, I think I'm feeling contractions. I just had one 10 minutes ago, you know, and he's like, okay, keep recording it, and if you need me to help, I can leave and come and get you. So I called my husband. I was like, oh, babe, I think I might be having contractions. I'm going to monitor it, but don't leave work yet because it could be a false alarm, Braxton Hicks, whatever you call it. So I keep getting my nails done, and they keep coming every 10 minutes, every 10 minutes. I was at the nail place for about an hour and a half, and at the time that I left, the contractions were now every 7 minutes. So I decided to go back to my mother-in-law's house and eat lunch, and my father-in-law ended up coming over for lunch as well. And at this point, the contractions were every 5 minutes. So I'm like, okay, this is really exciting. I think this is it, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to be that girl that goes to the hospital, you know, claims she's having contractions, gets checked, and then sent home, because that's like a mood killer. You're super excited to meet your baby, and then they send you home. It's like, come on. So I really wanted to be sure that I was actually having contractions. But my father-in-law was like, you shouldn't wait anymore. They're every 5 minutes. You're probably in labor. How about we take you to the hospital? And then if they admit you, you can call your husband. And if not, we'll take you home. And I was like, all right. So we decided to grab the bags and head to the hospital. So we get there, and everything is a very slow process compared to my first labor experience, because I guess since my water had broke, they were like rushing me through the process. But this time around, since my water hadn't broke, they were kind of like taking their time. Let's fill out the paperwork, let's check your blood pressure, let's ask you some questions. And I was just like, oh my God, why is this taking so long? Like, I just want to know if I'm gonna have a baby or not. I was really impatient the second time around. So finally, like an hour later, they put me into that little section where they gotta check me with, you know, hook me up to the monitors and check me with the strip test. And they go to put the strip test in, and it comes out blue. So I was like, yes, this is it. And immediately they told me, okay, you're gonna get admitted into a room. So if you wanna call anybody and let them know. So I called my husband, and he actually was arriving to the hospital at that moment. He didn't wait. He just was so excited, and he left work to come anyways. But I'm glad he did, because it wasn't a false alarm, and I now had him by my side for when they put me into the room. So before they sent me up to the room, they did one final check on me, and I was already 4 centimeters dilated, okay? Remember with my first, I was not dilated at all, like at all, for the whole entire process. Well, I had just got to the hospital, contractions 5 minutes apart, and already 4 centimeters dilated. So it's a big difference. Now, once we get into the room, I have to say that we were not really taken care of properly and how you should be, because in my first labor experience, a nurse or doctor was coming in every hour to check how I was dilating and how things were going with my blood pressure and all that. But this time around, nobody was coming to check on us at all unless we called that we needed something. So if I needed water or ice chips or whatnot. I'm gonna fast forward about 3 hours since we had gotten into the room. Again, no one came to check how many centimeters I was dilated. And because I had been experiencing so many contractions, I was so like, my mind was so focused on that, because this time around I really did want to try to not have any epidural. I wanted to experience the other side of labor without any pain meds, so that I can just know and see how it is, you know. Call me crazy, but not being good with pain, my husband still doesn't understand to this day why I wouldn't want the medication, but it was just something that I wanted to do and experience for myself. So at this point, contractions are so bad, like worse than with my first, and I just couldn't focus on anything but breathing and concentrating on, like, every time that contraction came, how to like try to get over it. And at this point, my contractions were every 2 to 3 minutes, so it was pretty intense. At this point, I'm like, let's call the nurse in, like, I need some epidural, I can't deal with this anymore. But mind you, I didn't know how many centimeters I was dilated. I didn't have like an ETA of how much longer I'd be in labor. So I was kind of like giving up at this point. So the nurse comes in and she's like, oh, you know, it's gonna be a while. We're trying to get an epidural in someone next door, so it might be like 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I am just not ready to keep dealing with this pain. So she leaves and the contractions continue to get worse. And literally at this point, every time I got a contraction, like, I felt something in my butt, as weird as it sounds. But those of you who have experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. And I felt this urge to literally get up every time, and I would let out like a shriek. It was just this pain that I just couldn't take. And I was like, oh my God, babe, like, where's the epidural? We gotta get this epidural. And he was like, you know, okay, we gotta make my wife happy, we gotta make her feel better. Like, what are we gonna do? 45 minutes passes by, I still have no epidural. Then I start getting these really like intense contractions, now 2 minutes or less apart. And at this point, I screamed to my husband, this baby is coming, get the nurse now. Like, I promise you, I felt that sensation, like this baby was shooting out of my body. I promise you not. I felt like this baby was pushing himself out. I wasn't even trying. So my husband calls the nurse in, like, oh, she's having the baby, she's having the baby. They come in, they move me on the bed. As soon as the doctor comes, my water bursts, and he turned me to the side and he's like, don't push, hold on, you're gonna break. And I'm like, I'm not pushing. And I promise you, that baby shot himself right out. Like, he just came out. My body was pushing him out. My husband almost delivered this baby, because if they hadn't come in when they did, like, literally as soon as I would have made it to the bed, he would have been the one grabbing that child out of me, and what an experience that would have been. But yeah, so the baby just shot out, and they gave him to me. And when I saw him at first, I freaked out because his face was black and blue, and I was just like, oh my God, is he breathing, is he okay? And they told me, yeah, that's just facial bruising from the impact of how he came out of you. And like, guys, I really, like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, my body was pushing this child out. I wasn't trying to push him out. I wasn't trying to force him out. I didn't even push. But little did I know that this entire time that I was having these contractions where I had to get up, where I felt that sensation in my lower back, in my butt, that was my body in labor, active labor. Like, my body was pushing on its own. And we didn't know this because, again, I didn't experience that ever before. And no doctor or nurse was even checking on me this entire time. So it was like ridiculous, like, how I was in labor this whole time, and little did I know. So I'm very thankful that the baby was okay. Nothing was wrong with him. This time around, thankfully, I didn't have blood pressure issues or fever or a breathing mask. But I did get to have the labor experience I wanted, in the sense that I didn't end up getting the epidural because it never made it there on time. Actually, funny thing is that the anesthesiologist arrived right when they were handing me the baby with the epidural, and they were like, yeah, it's too late, she just had the baby. So I'm very happy that I did get to experience that side. What was it like? Apparently it's bearable because I did it. I did feel like the baby coming out. That might freak you out a little bit, but it's actually a beautiful part of the process. So epidural versus no epidural, honestly, it's up to you. Just do whatever you want. And I would say the best advice I could give you is don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you want to get that epidural, then just get it. And if you strongly feel like you want to try to go without it, then try and go without it. But know that you might halfway through the process want to get it, and that's okay too. Just know that sometimes you might not have time to get it. because, you know, life takes its turns and things move quickly. But yeah, so that was my two different stories completely. Like my first labor was like, is this child ever gonna come out of me? And my second labor was like, whoa, he shot out way too fast. So yeah, guys, that was my labor delivery experiences. Yeah, I mean, both two different crazy, completely different stories, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Honestly, the experience I had, they are great memories that are gonna last a lifetime. Another word of advice that I can give you guys is just to have your birth plan in mind. I personally didn't print a birth plan and give it to anybody, but I had it in mind, like, okay, with my first one, I knew I wanted to try to not have epidural, and if I had to, I would get it, and I knew that I wanted to deliver naturally, have a vaginal delivery in the hospital, but I also told myself that if an emergency were to happen, or for whatever reason they had to do a C-section, I kind of tried to mentally prepare myself for that, to know that as long as it's for the safety of my baby, I'll do whatever it takes. So with that said, you know, have your plan in mind, whether you want epidural or not, but just know that things can take a turn and they might not go as you plan. But as long as you and the baby are safe and healthy, guys, at the end of this, that's all that matters, is that you and your baby are safe and healthy. And you just brought this baby into the world, so it doesn't matter how you did it. The point is that you did it, girl, and you carried that baby, you nourished that baby, and now you brought it into this world. And honestly, good job for you. And if you're an expecting mom that is about to go through this labor experience, then I wish you the best of luck, honestly. Just go into it confident and know that you're gonna have your own experience, but it's gonna be beautiful either way. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and found it helpful or interesting to get to know a little bit more about me. And if you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can stay tuned for what's next to come. So I really enjoyed sharing with you guys here today, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. And until next time, bye.